Hello, hello, hello. Hope everyone can hear me okay. I am so psyched to be here at DPW Amsterdam. You don't understand. I'm like an old Procure-Tech analyst from '99, and I've been to about 100 conferences, and there's nothing out there like DPW Amsterdam. So real kudos to Matthias. Looking forward to seeing the US version of it. So it's 4 a.m. my time, Boston time, so I'll try to keep on it with my esteemed panel here. So just wanted to do some just quick introductions here, and Chang from Coupa, and actually the person you work for actually used to be at SAP, and Anju Gupta at SAP used to be at Coupa, and Pascal Bensoussan, you used to work, oh, you're just at Ivalua.
I'm just at Ivalua.
At all, but anyway, that's okay. Constancy is a good thing. Okay, so one of the things that when I first became Procure-Tech analyst back in '99, the big debate at the time was suites versus best of breed, more ERP versus best of breed, right? But at that time, people didn't have any spend visibility, data quality was an issue, and we were having this debate on best of breed versus ERP. Now, luckily, we've solved all those problems, right? We all have spend visibility, the data's good? No? Okay, all right, well, we're gonna talk about the issue around suites and how do we make good choices in using these technologies. So, as you guys are probably, and your organizations are facing, you'd like to have your procurement infrastructure, your digital infrastructure be able to support things like better user experience for your stakeholders, better kind of process integration and orchestration and tying into your stakeholder systems for more seamless experience, better kind of native AI, so you don't have to be AI hobbyists, and cobble together your own, kind of capabilities, and and all the issues around data management, et cetera. So what I'd like to do is, talk to this esteemed group here, and they are really responsible for building some of the solutions that are, the major solutions out in the market from a suite perspective and just overall. So I'd really love to get your guys' perspective on what you guys are doing to respond to some of these issues around better UX, need for AI, better intelligence, better kind of outside of S2P, that orchestration. So, I'll just kind of open it up early. Pascal, we'll start with you. Kind of, what do you, in 2 minutes or less, describe everything that you're doing around those particular issues. No, but sir, let's get the ball rolling.
Sure. So let's get started. So everything that you listed is very important. UI, UX, and that's core to having adoption. I wouldn't say that we have an adoption problem with 96% retention rate. We see that our customers are very satisfied. However, I think the market is evolving. I think there are new opportunities to bring into the mix a very vibrant ecosystem of third-party application players. I think generative AI and AI in general is here to stay. We've been doing AI for a long time, but I think generative AI is changing the game very much, and we're probably going to talk about that. Mm-hmm. And I think intake management, and I know there is a bit of obsession around, are you doing any intake management, is also a very interesting trend. So we're on all of those fronts. Very important for us to listen to customers, to understand that the procurement organization is taking some height, reaching out more broadly across other departments and need to synchronize and combine and align processes. So that's very important to understand. Our mission still remains to offer our customers a backbone that creates the first place and the system of record for all spend and all suppliers. Because until you have that robust data strategy, that backbone, it's very hard to make a lot of, I would say, more point solutions, even if they are expert in value-added services, to interoperate very well. So our first objective is to do that. You asked for an example. I think vendor master management is a core example of where we're investing a lot. Our objective is to bring a very clean view of all the supplier records. An example is one of our customers brought about 200,000 suppliers across 4 to 7 ERPs. We clean up that supplier base and ultimately activated about 60,000 suppliers, 20 to 30,000 of which are active at any given time through one single portal. And that's the beauty and the value of starting there.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think you mentioned, kind of about the system of record. And it's funny, right? Because finance would say, no, the general ledger is the system of record, And it is, right, to close the books. But, when you try to make your GL do unholy things, it is not a spend cube, it is not a way to model markets, not a good thing, right? But so this whole issue of kind of maintaining like the master data synchronization, very important thing. It was funny when I was at Hackett, the number one thing that topic that we had at Webcast-wise that people were really interested in was vendor master data management, data governance, and who owns finance or AP versus procurement, these tactical issues, and you need good technology support. So Anju, let me ask you a little bit on your side in terms of, all of these issues, right? I mean, you guys have a large ecosystem and, S4HANA, German engineered, Panzerwagon, deep data model, maybe not always the best user experience, but you have other solutions and you're a part of an overall kind of ecosystem. So maybe just talk a little bit more broadly about what you guys are doing to address some of those concerns.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for having us here. It's so exciting to be here. I mean, this conference, this is my first time here, but the energy here is just palpable. And it's really exciting to be sharing the stage with Fang and Pascal and you. So in terms of, where we are going at SAP Ariba, in terms of future-proofing ourselves and staying relevant, there are really two things. One is focusing on building intelligent user experiences. You hit upon the fact. I think a lot of people here in this room will agree that our user experiences can use a little bit of revamping. And as we do that, we are really focused on building intelligent user experiences. And the second is a very strong data strategy. And let me tell you why these things are important. Now more than ever, every time I talk to CPOs and procurement leaders, especially over the last 12 months or so, there are two questions that they ask us. They ask me, what is your AI roadmap? And they ask me, how can you make our experiences more productive for users? And this is not about creating AI for the sake of creating AI. I think the war for talent is real. Just yesterday, I was talking to a senior leader here, and he mentioned that it's taking them upwards of a year to fill up procurement positions, right? And that's the gap that technology has to fill. It has to make our users faster, more efficient, so they can go about focusing on strategic things that only humans can do. And that's where we, as we rebuild our UX, we're going to pepper it with intelligence and AI in a way that democratizes the use of procurement, right? And it offers the guidance and the expertise that perhaps a person who's coming in new into your organization that does not have decades of experience can still feel confident about how they are executing within their jobs, right? So that's something that we are focused on. And as we look at this AI, of course, data was always king or queen, whatever you want to say. But now, more than ever, in order to light up those AI experiences, you need a very strong data strategy. So that's what we are going to be focused on.
Yeah, you have to manage the data if you're going to have those embedded analytics to serve them up into those workflows, for sure. And Fang, maybe you could just touch on this. I mean, from the get-go, you guys have focused on adoption, right? And that requires good user experience, and sometimes no UX is the best UX, sometimes, as you guys like to say. But maybe just talk a little bit about some of the things that you guys are doing to address, because it's a never-ending journey, right, around improving that experience and things like that.
Of course. I mean, thank you again for having me, and it's great to be here. And I think that's right on, right? Coupa has always been known for its user experience. We were born in the cloud, and we drive user adoption and help our customers bring more spend under management. $6 trillion spend management accumulated over the last 15 years is absolutely amazing. And we continue to invest in our user experiences because driving adoption is key. But another thing that Coupa has been doing for years is that it's been collecting and harvesting that $6 trillion of spend under management. We're anonymizing it and using it to drive AI capabilities. At the end of the day, what we're trying to do is automate procurement processes. There will always be humans in the loop, so that's why user experience is paramount and key in driving adoption. But imagine what you can do with that $6 trillion of spend that we have. Imagine the processes that we can automate. Taking and driving efficiencies within the organization is really what we're trying to do with Coupa. And this is why a suite is so important, because now the data is connected, the teams are connected. You're no longer depending on IT to stitch together applications, and you can drive automated workflows through your organization, again, to drive more efficiencies.
That makes a lot of sense. And so let's kind of reimagine this suite, if we will. So let's think about kind of, obviously people think about suite and they think of single code base, kind of the application monolith, one set of code, one harmonized data model. Great. But let's think about the reality of a virtual, set of systems, all the systems that you guys have in your organizations. So if we're going to have kind of the notion of a virtual suite that gets the benefits, right, of the suite, but still has the ability to accommodate, and integrate to different systems, well, that can mean different things. So let's kind of pick on a couple examples. So one might be workflow. How do we take extend our workflow and orchestrate outside of our own source-to-pay data model and get into TPRM and FP&A, and sorry for all the TLAs, three-letter acronyms, four-letter acronyms. How do we kind of really reach into that? And so that might be one example. And maybe, Pascal, I'll kind of call on you just in terms of you guys have always been known for the really flexible workflow. Any kind of good examples of extending that beyond kind of the bounds of your own application to get in these extended areas to kind of, because, obviously procurement wants to get, the number one predictor of procurement, world-class performance when I was back at Hackett was the level of earliness that you have in terms of working with your stakeholders. If you're engaged earlier with them, if you're at those multiple tables and you're bringing value to them in context at that time when you have all those value levers and they're not showing up at the front door, at 11 p.m., then that's really what you want. So maybe if you have any examples there.
Sure. I mean, on average, our customers deploy typically 4 to 8 systems integrated with Ivalua. And those are sometimes internal systems. There are also other applications. Maybe before I answer explicitly your question, I think we all agree that in the age of uncertainty that we live, building efficient, resilient, sustainable supply chain is the paramount activity for any procurement organization. And to do that and unlock the power of supplier collaboration, you need, as I said, a backbone and fundamentally a system of record for all your spend and all your suppliers. What we do believe is that the approach with a suite, or at least a platform, more than the suite, and you talk about virtual suites, which is deploying many types of application integrated into one platform. But if we talk about the platform first, what's truly important is to offer one portal for supplier, a consistent UX, an extensible platform that's a no-code, low-code platform where you can easily create extended flows. With that in mind, we released in May what we call the add-on store, the Ivalua add-on store. It's something that we had been using internally at Ivalua for many years to store unique configurations, unique packages that extend the standard product of Ivalua for different verticals, for example, as we go to public sector, manufacturing, healthcare, or to store specific kind of set of features that were built by our partners. Ultimately, we decided to open it up to all our partners, implementation partner, integration partners. We have now 250 plus applications that are running on the add-on store. We have 50 plus add-on packages that have been published in the last 5 months by our integration partner. And I can give you a few examples. You talked about TPRM. We have a connector that goes deeper than just a connector that exchanges data with pre-wave Integrity Next coming in the next 2 weeks. We're going to be announcing maybe today, I think, or WNS Procurement Smart Cube is announcing the availability of Amplify Pro for category management inside Ivalua. And just to conclude, I would say it goes beyond just having just a little iframe running in our application. Yep. It goes beyond bringing data from that external system just for the purpose of a one single session or a workflow. Yep. It's really extending the data model, mapping the data coming from those external systems into the backbone that already exists, making sense of that data with new pages, new ways to display and work with that data from within the virtual suite, as you call it, yeah, but using the fundamental platform components of Ivalua and making that data actionable across many other processes. For example, with TPRM, if you onboard a supplier, at the time you onboard that supplier through the portal. You may make a call to pre-wave, get important information about the risk metrics, update the risk scorecard about that supplier, segment that supplier, place that supplier in different segments. Think of them as tagging that supplier with different risk or different areas, which will influence the onboarding process. What type of document you're going to be asking, what type of questionnaires you will be sending, what type of approval you need to have to finalize the onboarding of that supplier.
That's a great use case. And I think that's one of those great use cases where we've kind of living, it's like contract management, where we're living in a like document-centric, almost analog world, and we're trying to get into, all right, let's get into the metadata, let's get into the clauses, let's actually get into the atomic level obligations and risks. Then same thing on TPRM, right? We have all these reg du jours that are like coming down on us, but yet we don't really have that library of all of those regs and the metadata about them to dynamically then construct those workflows, bring them together, and bring that seamlessly into source to pay, but starting from all those different functions that have all those different requirements. I'm going to jump over to Fang, because I think you guys have been pretty sophisticated in the use of your app store and how you permission them and you turn them on, and the functionality just kind of turns on, which is versus just popping in the D&B score or the risk score, or the EcoVadis, these types of things, and tax calculations, and those are all great, right? You want that flow, but maybe just talk about that, and then Anju, I'm going to get back to BTP and we'll talk about the ecosystem there. So
sure, absolutely. I mean, we've been running our marketplace for quite some time, and you're right? It's not just about a loose integration with the data structures within Coupa or the workflows in Coupa. It's really about binding it tightly and making sure that we have an open platform that our partners and our customers can extend. And TPRM is key. This is absolutely paramount in this day and age, especially post-pandemic, where I know it's on top of every CPO's minds. So that is one of the things that Coupa has excelled in, that we invite our our partners to bring those scores in and use them to drive workflows within the Coupa system, right? Imagine, if you will, these days, actually in the old days, the way that you work with risk is you onboard the supplier, you put them through a risk assessment, and you're done. But your relationship with the supplier isn't just the first day in terms of how you do business, it's throughout the entire life of that contract. So with Coupa, you can actually monitor that risk score every single time you transact with that supplier, whether it be at the invoicing stage or maybe even a contract renewal. You want to know what the risk scores have changed for that supplier, so you can take the proper actions necessary to protect your company and your brand. And that's the nature of a deep integration, not only at the data structure level, but also at the UX and UI workflow level.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think you guys have mentioned, which is just a key thing, that's just, speaking of going back 25 years, I mean, the supplier enablement problem just continues to be an issue, right? And how do we have empathy for the suppliers, and different roles at the suppliers in terms of their ability to interact with the system and to do it in a way that also extends out of their sell-side systems more naturally, and kind of, versus, just doing the PO, thou shalt do the PO flip or, whatever, right? So, Anju, let me kind of ask you a little bit, obviously you guys have been, pioneers around supplier networks and business networks, but, I mean, you guys have also have been kind of forced to platformize yourself because you've acquired a lot of companies and so you have now the business technology platform that tries to bring a lot of these things in together, and then as well as just within your native capabilities. Maybe just highlight any things that you'd like to chat about in terms of whether it's network or the the BTP to kind of help manage this virtual suite, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's all of the above, right? It's absolutely the business network, but also our platform. Procurement systems, like Pascal mentioned earlier, the war between best of breed, best of suite, I think we're somewhere in the middle. Many customers have increasingly a very heterogeneous environment. And when you think about some of the problems that we are trying to solve, whether it be TPRM, whether it be asset management, it goes beyond the walls of just procurement, right? It's about risk, it's about compliance, it's about ensuring that processes, data, workflow is orchestrated between not just procurement, but between IT, legal, finance, and procurement teams are stepping up to that challenge, right? We are no longer just a cost-cutting department. We are creating value, we are adding value, we are about growth and revenue, and that's where technology has to step up and enable our procurement departments to fulfill these roles. And at SAP, we do this absolutely through our platform, through the SAP's Business Technology Platform, or BTP. We have over 100 connectors that are available already. These connectors are fully extensible. They are infused with AI, and they allow our customers and business users of these customers to extend these connectors to be able to orchestrate processes and workflows across their heterogeneous environments. Whether that environment or those applications are S4, whether it is SAP Ariba, Fieldglass, Concur, or perhaps a system like a Salesforce, right? You can use a low-code, no-code environment to really connect up and orchestrate these processes. And it's not just that. We are also very open to our partner ecosystem. So our partners, many of them in this room, are able to extend these connectors and provide even more processes that then extend the value of our suite. And of course, the business network as well, which I'm sure we will talk about some more. When we think about the business network, in the days of the old, it was a supplier network. All it was being used for was to transact, POs, and then it was invoices, and then it was direct material, et cetera. And now it's about connecting trading partners, right? No business exists in a silo. You are a customer, you are a supplier, you are a logistics freight provider, et cetera. And there is so much value that we are able to derive from there, not only for ourselves, but also extend it to our partner ecosystem.
Makes a lot of sense. And yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, when you talk about, and Pascal, you mentioned this about kind of really broadening the data model and not just adding on a field here or there or a little bolt-on table, but actually getting into, we need to model our N-tier supply network for carbon, ESG, multi-tier scenarios, and even on the indirect space, when you think about ESG and energy management and all the interesting things that are happening in the energy space as a category. I mean, it's crazy when you think about PPAs and virtual PPAs and all these things that are happening, in the industries. That is a really radical kind of superset in huge data model to kind of, get into. And you guys have some of those in your, in your partner portfolio. You guys have Lamasoft. You're partnering with Pre-Wave, which has a lot of that capability. So it's really it's really interesting now to see the ecosystems evolve to be able to now model these extended enterprises finally to get that visibility into those areas. But let's actually talk about something a little less sophisticated or just maybe more on the internal side, which is intake. And I know we roll our eyes up intake, but it's an important issue, right? I mean, like I'm thinking back 2006. I had this idea around kind of CRM and procurement, and how do we really kind of engage with our stakeholders early, since that's like that big predictor of world-class performance. And the thing is, it's really funny. There's these front doors everywhere, right? These in terms of intake around sourcing, around contracts, around on the P2P side, but also within IT service management, and if you're really not just going to sit there and wait at the front door for those stakeholders to come in at the last minute, how do we get out into country and engage them within FP&A, right? Within spend planning, within renewal planning, if you got a lot of SaaS contracts, how do we really start doing those things? So as you get into those kind of more complex intake and really demand and stakeholder management and engagement kind of processes, that's going to require a lot of these integrations to different systems and et cetera. Now, so you guys, I'm sure, you have your own native capabilities and partner strategies, but tell me kind of where you guys are on intake, not just as a process, but then how that's kind of creating a need for that cross-functional system integration and that process orchestration to not just hand you off to the old, purchase requisition, but actually take you a bit deeper into, hey, here's the optimized, buy and pay channels for this category or whatever, dynamically create that stuff. So I know there's a lot in that question, but why don't we just kind of work down the line? So Pascal, maybe you can start.
Sure. Thanks, Pierre. It's funny because for a long time we really thought of intake management as a nice-to-have feature. Frankly, our customers didn't really ask for it. They had an ability to deploy more than what they could absorb with the full suite that we provide. And it really felt to us that it was really motivated by a need to orchestrate disjointed applications that don't necessarily share a common backbone. But we're evolving. and we're listening to our customers. And I'm sure that in the room today, many of you are looking at intake and wondering, is that for me? Should I deploy it first? Should I deploy it later? How do I integrate my processes with finance, with HR, with IT, with facilities? Because I want to extend and reach a broader audience of a broader number of users across the company to be able to express a need and then fulfill that need, right? So what became very clear to us is that it's a real need. We had already 3, I would say, of the 4 building blocks of building fundamentally a good intake management solution. If you think about it, you need a unified and extended data model to make all the different parts interoperate. You need a very robust integration layer that allows you to call external APIs, listen to events very quickly, and then configure those if they are not, or bring in existing connectors if you want to implement those integrations very quickly. And you need a configurable workflow to route and orchestrate the rules that decide how to kind of orchestrate through that flow. We had all those 3 items. I think what's changing the game and what made us accelerate our decision to look at intake management very seriously is generative AI. Because I think generative AI brings a new form of intake. I call it conversational intake management, where instead of filling out a form, instead of going through a set of scripted questions, you ask a chatbot to generate those questions on the fly based on a specific objective, based on a set of parameters that you need to collect as if you were on the other side of a help desk, but automating that conversational process and helping someone who is on a mobile device, maybe even using their voice only, to express a need, get some questions, fine-tune the need to the point where it can be fulfilled. So I think that's a game changer. We're building the solution right now with a number of customers in Europe and in the US. It doesn't mean that we won't make our platform interoperable with other intake management solutions, because again, we listen to our customers and they may have made already a choice as to who they want to work with. But we are looking, and we'll see if that works, to take the higher grounds of saying, same platform, separate from source to pay, different set of functionalities, sold to the CIO, not the CPO, and taking the higher ground on the enterprise, at the enterprise level. Very new to us, but ultimately, it's a question of fundamentally good technology, fast time to adoption, and it's a journey that we're ready to tackle.
Yeah, I think the bringing in the point around LLMs is really great in being able to interact with the user and ask those minimum set of questions that you need to understand context to take them to the right place. Because, let's face it, right now, it's like, if you have a bunch of stuff locked in a policy document and then you've got some separate little portal, end users have no clue, right? They're going to go off the ranch. You got to guide them, right? And so that ability to take all that knowledge that you have within your policies and your approvals and stuff that's scattered all over the place, it's not necessarily in one system, and really merge that into the experience is powerful, but also very challenging. So, Anju, maybe, you guys have a big ecosystem. I know you leverage a lot of partners for using BTP or whatever to kind of put on the front end. Nobody's exactly the same, but any kind of comments on this area?
Yeah, same. I think intake management took a lot of us by surprise, if you will, right? We thought our systems were integrated and, that's what our customers were using them for. And then all of a sudden, intake management became such a hot need. And it's something that, we are absolutely focused on, like you said, and like I mentioned earlier, not just through our platform, through BTP, but also through our ecosystem of partners. And like with everything else, we're also working on providing the out-of-the-box user experiences that are needed by the end casual users, right? Ultimately, for an expert procurement person, perhaps intake is not necessary. They know what to do. But when you bring the problem of procurement and you bring it to your casual users, when you bring it to the masses who may not know, what kind of steps are required in order to ask for a contract renewal, or when they are trying to onboard a vendor, what are all the various actions that need to happen? Everything from checking if the supplier is already in the system, to checking the risk of the supplier, to checking the financial viability of the supplier, et cetera. These are very complex processes that require so many departments to work together, and not just in a swivel chair approach, and making sure that the user at the end of it is fully intimidated about all the steps. So this requires not just the orchestration, the workflow, but also a very smart user interface that guides the user through these various steps and keeps them informed of where a particular process might be. So through our platform, through our partners, and then now also through building these out-of-the-box interfaces, you should see us really playing in here and watch out for this space.
Great. Okay. And Fang, I mean, I know you guys partnered with Focal Point and Tonkin, but you have some capabilities. I mean, just anything to add around?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? I think when we think about it, if you take a step back, Coupa has been doing intake for years, right? And it's really now about exposing it for our customers, right? Through a better UX, through our forms, through our process automator, which has been existing with the Coupa to route these workflows and these custom objects through the various systems. I mean, Anju remembers this. Like back in the day, Coupa was actually being used within our own company to do PTO forms. That's a perfect intake situation where you want to provide a seamless user experience, a guided experience for users that may not be related necessarily to just procurement, but a front door for users that they can simply answer questions and then be gently nudged in the right direction. Those capabilities have been existent. And for us at Coupa, it's really about making it easier, exposing it and making it easier to administer.
Well, I mean, we've been talking about AI, and I'm just looking at eye on the clock here, and AI is kind of a small little topic to discuss, and I mean, it just has so many pieces to it. So, I mean, I'll just kind of open it up broadly. I mean, you guys mentioned within the guided experience, I think one of the exciting areas is not just around, LLMs and talk to your apps and, kind of some of the chatbot use cases, and also using generative AI to kind of solve some of the old problems in a better way. It's really been pretty amazing. And then talking to all you guys and folks in terms of how the technology has really allowed some of the old problems around classification and feature extraction, all these things in the analytics space, in kind of the the invoice process of contracts, anything that has kind of that unstructured data has been very powerful. But now you've got the Agentic AI, you've got latest OpenAI product around AGI and reasoning and O1, and it's like, okay, it gets really complicated, and it seems like that ability to use multiple AI technologies, multiple LLMs, kind of orchestrate these things to kind of have fit-for-purpose kind of AI to support the particular problems that you're dealing with seems to be the general trend, and allowing customers to bring your own LLM and not just your own kind of custom-built foundation models and things like that. So I know there's a lot in here, but let me just share with everybody what really excites you about kind of what you're, kind of kids in the candy store. Of course, you got to make it all work, but what really excites you about, the AI capabilities that you guys are building into the platform to really bring it to bear so that folks can actually just get AI just by using, a good solution? We'll start with you. Yeah.
I'll start. Okay. We believe that generative AI is fundamentally disruptive. I think it will take a few more years, I think, to settle in terms of what exactly it can do. But I think today we see that it is truly disruptive, and there's almost a limitless number of possibilities. Every time we look at our application, we see opportunities to leverage an AI engine or a generative AI engine to extract information, to summarize, to translate, to classify, to provide recommendation, to synthesize, to even generate content or code that can then be automated within the application. So much so that we decided to really look at generative AI as an operating system, as a business operating system. And that's fundamentally changing the way people interact with a machine, with a user interface. Today, it's very scripted by a code that an engineer is going to work. I think in the future, it will be more conversational. You can call it conversational procurement. It will be more generated on the fly. I can give you a few examples, but maybe before I give you some examples, it became very important to us to have fundamentally an orchestration layer that kind of connects what an end user is trying to do. Think of it as, well, I'm on a page, I would like to summarize that contract, I would like to highlight the risk, I would like to take that risk, plug it into a risk scorecard. Great. It can be actually fairly easily done when you have a no-code platform, and you can actually create an instruction that says to a generative AI engine, take that document, extract the risk, structure it that way with maybe 6 or 7 data elements, store those data elements in the database that way. Fairly easy to do with a no-code platform. Behind that, you need an orchestration layer that understands what you mean by all of this. Right. And so we ultimately understood that we had to build an agentic framework. And so our orchestration layer is built of multiple agents. We have one called a web agent. A web agent goes and scores the web and finds information in the web. In fact, it follows through the search engine results and looks on those pages for the most relevant content that can ultimately feed a market research, a supplier research, information on regulations that is published publicly.
It's fascinating, right, how you're taking a lot of the code almost ripping it out of the traditional systems and now putting them into agents. So when we talked before, it's like, now we're actually really componentizing the functionality into very specific skills that you can really start to mix and match versus, we got to go back and change the monolithic code, which I know you don't like having to do either.
I love, right? Pierre, that you talk about skills, because ultimately those agents alone are not really useful. When I say agent, I mention a web agent, a document agent, knowing how to extract text from a document, summarizing, translating. A user agent, a chatbot who is able to generate questions on the fly based on an objective. Yep. A database agent that can look into your database to kind of get all the information to answer precisely the question of a user. Those need to be orchestrated. Right. And ultimately packaged in the form of task flows that are configurable. We call them skills.
Well, that's the key thing, right? Which is, I think that all sounds great, but then you get into this like, well, it's all in the black box. Don't worry, it's going to spit out beautiful code and workflows. And you're like, well, in that spirit of transparency and understanding how it did that, and maybe you'd like to understand the rules and the way in which it ultimately then created the workflows in the system that kind of makes sense. There has to be that transparency. And maybe, Anju, if you can just talk a little bit about, I think one of the things that's interesting on the LLM side that you guys have done is really build up your own foundation models from the 200,000 SAP tables, within the ecosystem to kind of abstract that up, do the harmonization, but kind of use that to train the core foundation model. So it's almost like built-in kind of retrieval augmented generation in a way, right? To kind of be able to say, we're focusing on this language of SAP, or the language of these kind of business, objects and metadata, to then make sure that that experience is going to be much more hallucination-free and focused and in context, right? So, just anything like that on the AI side?
Yes, absolutely. Like you said, AI is something that, I'm personally super excited about, and something that, SAP is investing a whole lot in. From the language model that you talked about, there is Joule, which is SAP's Copilot, conversational style Copilot that is now embedded across the SAP ecosystem. And it enables users to interact with our applications in a natural language style, to do things like navigational use cases. How do I do this? Informational, like what's the status of my invoice? To advanced use cases where you can create a shopping cart or create an RFP just by interacting in a very conversational style. Again, at the end of the day, I believe that AI has to exist to solve the productivity problem. If it's not making a user more productive, more strategic, there's no point to that AI, right? And the staggering pace at which traditional AI to GenAI and now Agentic AI, as a product officer, that's what excites me. When I think about Agentic AI, I think about having a process like a Copilot that can take away the monotonous day-to-day tasks away from humans and help them focus on strategic things. So take the example of sourcing, right? An agent could help you put together your sourcing event, But at the same time, a different agent could be available to suppliers to help them understand the questions, to put together the responses, and manage the follow-up. Then again, another agent could be at the buyer side, collecting all this information that is coming in from suppliers and helping you analyze and helping you figure out what your award scenario might be. I mean, the possibilities there are endless, and those are the types of use cases that my team and I are dreaming up, brainstorming, and we are super excited about introducing within the products.
And Fang, in terms of maybe just anything to add there in terms of, I mean, obviously you've got a lot of this built-in intelligence through the benchmarking in the community, and that seems to be a great way to get intelligence and artificial intelligence, but a lot of ways to kind of get that knowledge in context and have that be used to kind of drive some of the business process activity.
Absolutely. I mean, we all know this, the best data makes the best AI, and that's important and critical in terms of what are you going to do with Agentic AI or conventional AI. Those are important aspects of it. I think, like Anju and Pascal said, it's really about driving efficiencies and automation in systems and having large batches of data, which, of course, AI is really good at slicing and dicing. Humans aren't as good at it, but AI can do that in seconds, and using that to drive intelligence within the platform to automate workflows is critical. Whether that be a sourcing event or even contracting, guiding the user or guiding the contract manager to understand what he or she needs to do is key. Now, the one thing I want to be careful, very, very excited about GenAI and the use cases it unlocks. So one thing I want to be careful about is that you don't actually use AI to cover up bad UX, right? Because I think conventional AI is great, but if your UX is horrible and you're relying on a chat agent to guide you through a simple process, that's where you have to be careful. You want to make sure you invest in your UX experiences as well as driving efficiencies and value through AI.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. At the same time, though, people do have a lot of legacy systems. There's probably still a few AS400s out in some manufacturing, closets, somewhere, and that is the challenge of the integration, is tying into those. So I think the more in which you not only have the AI, but also the orchestration, the integration, and all these abilities to kind of really plug in and surround and integrate to all those areas, it's a very powerful story. I will say, just personally, I think the whole area within AI, one of the most exciting areas to me is, it's going to take a little while for it to really unfold, is the whole area around knowledge graphs. And knowledge graphs, you might not, you can go dive into that topic later, but the whole idea is, how do we model our data much more flexibly and in a way that can tie the world of language models, low-level, context-free, data prediction engines, if you will, to the very high-context, structured, relational database world of business apps. When we can bring those things together, and when language can be not just the spoken language, but it can be legalese, that strange dialect, that legal speaks, within contracts, or we speak the language of certain business processes, or we speak the language of that ability to kind of tie knowledge, not just generic intelligence, but to model that in a way that brings together the power of the business apps and how we model businesses with this evolving set of really deep, kind of LLMs and action models and all that, is a very powerful thing. And it makes the language models more powerful, and it also lets you do better things around the analytics. And all the Google and Facebook, all those guys, they all run on graphs. A lot of the tech vendors here, they run on graphs. It's something you don't need to necessarily know how to build yourself, but you should ask any provider that you're working with, what are they doing around their own LLM strategy, certainly around foundation models, et cetera, but also try to understand what they're doing around graphs and just flexible data modeling and being able to do the metadata management, the more flexible master data integration and things like that. So just kind of putting my call out there, like guided buying back in 2005. Knowledge graphs, I think, are going to be a big deal. So, and they make AI better. It's not really anything that's super high tech, but anyway. So, and they have their issues. All right, guys, let's get practical. One piece of advice that you would recommend to everybody here that is implementing, I mean, generally, but certainly if you're looking at suites in conjunction with ERP, in conjunction with this massive ecosystem of vendors. Anything kind of just guidance, like, mistakes people make over and over, just one, piece of guidance you'd give folks here at the conference, so.
Well, I would say this is an amazing time to be in procurement. think really broadly about your job and how you strategically partner with the CIO within your company, with the CFO within your company. We think that the next few years are going to be really interesting to be creative, to be relentless, to stretch your platforms with use cases that really build that resilience, that sustainability, that efficiency in the workflow. So push us, stretch us. We're waiting for all of that because I think there's a lot of tool sets in the bag that are going to be extremely powerful.
Yeah, particularly IT. Get aligned with IT. The last thing you want to do is be down a path and then at the last minute, the CIO said, sorry, the ERP vendor, gave us away these licenses for free, and, we're good. You're like, wait a minute, let's make it all work together, folks, shall we? I'm not picking on any ERP vendors, but Anju, any kind of advice that you would give to the community? Well, you guys have a huge ecosystem. It's not just ERP. I mean, it's everything, right? So.
Well, let's spare a thought for, high-tech, monolithic companies. We've done the world some good, right? But I would say that the biggest piece of advice that I can give is to look at your business process as you go through this transformation. Because a bad business process cannot cover up the best technology. Technology only amplifies the business processes, right? So your software will be as good as your business process, and it's a time for you to perhaps rethink those.
All right, Fang, you got 15 seconds. What's the big recommendation?
I think holistically, right? I think all the dependencies from source to pay, they are all tied together. The value that you can drive from understanding what procurement process is and how that ties back to the contract is key. So think holistically, work with your IT partners, and think strategically. It's about, dollar saved is worth more than dollar earned. So how do you actually drive those value within your organization?
Well, that is the ultimate vision of procurement. It's outside in, it's digital, and it's tapping the power of the ecosystem. And you guys are in the middle of an amazing digital ecosystem right here at DPW. So with that, I'd love to thank my panelists.
Thank you.
And thank you all for attending. Thanks very much.